You show no remorse when your enemy lies dying in agony at your feet. You show no mercy when your foe crumbles to his knees and begs for his life. You show no regret when your enemy's family is tortured for information. The species is depending on you. Go now and wipe them off the face of history.
Hey folks, today I'll cover a game that many years ago caught my attention thanks to some articles from magazines. Breed, the first and only game developed by the British studio Brat Design. Breed was a very ambitious project, which perhaps was overhyped by slogans like the Hello Killer and bullshit like that during its approximately 4 years of development, and upon release the game was generally panned by critics and players. The release product was quite unpolished and used to crash to the desktop many times during loadings. I can say that Breed is a game that tries many things, but doesn't excel at any of them. However, I have to admit that there's a certain passion and dedication in the general characterization of the forces at play, and the care of certain elements such as this very cool introductory movie, then the main menu animations, and so on. At its core, Breed can be described as a sci-fi tactical shooter, in which we usually play as a group of freely switchable soldiers. There are many ground battles in large maps, and also sections on vehicles, such as tanks, buggies and fighter jets even in the open space. Anyway, the story in short is this. In the year 2600, humanity has colonized the fictional Bisalius binary star system, where it also waged a devastating war against an alien threat nicknamed the Breed. After years of war, which ended with an apparent victory for us, only one cruiser ship, the Darwin, led by Captain Saul Richter, is able to return to Earth, but it finds out that the Breed have conquered our planet, while its forces were fighting far from home. Thus begins a new war against the invading aliens throughout the 18 missions of the game. We play as the Grunts, which stands for Genetically Revived Universal Tactical Sentient, literally expendable soldiers artificially created en masse, trained in a hurry and sent to the slaughter. Yes, in fact the first two missions are 2 training sessions in a VR world, after which we'll be catapulted into the conflict against the Breed. Almost everything in this game feels, or actually is, freaking broken. To start, the companions AI sucks. They are not very reactive and have the bad habit of falling off cliffs or getting stuck against various obstacles. Although you have the possibility of controlling different classes of soldiers, their effectiveness does not change much, and the best I would say is the sniper. By exploiting the artificial dementia of the enemies, it's easy to kill them from very far away, and it will be vital to use the sniper rifle to neutralize the artillery positions that will hit us from kilometers away. Anyway, the humans' weapons have such cool names. There's the Atrocity, the Surekill, the Butcher 44K, that has a nice blasting sound, then the Genocide Deluxe, the Snuff Buddy M4, but in the end the basic machine gun, the R340 Assault, kills everyone with extreme ease. The gunplay per se is quite mediocre, and the machine guns have an exaggerated spread. We'll also have the possibility of collecting the Breed weapons, but I've always found them very weak. Breed is pretty linear. Sometimes we can experiment different paths to reach waypoints during missions, but climbing steep hills is daunting and the companion's pathfinding is dumb. We can give some orders like keep position, stay close, cease fire, or give us a spare medkit, but it doesn't change much the overall experience. Many times I cleaned entire squads of enemies very fast by myself, whose AI is nothing memorable, though sometimes they even do somersaults to avoid arriving projectiles. Even though we control a squad of soldiers, there's no need to fear losing teammates. If the gunner or the sniper die, don't panic because there's no game over. Imagine that in the second mission, my dead comrades in arms just respawn like nothing happened. However, sometimes will be required to keep someone alive for story purposes, like the engineer during the mission Eagle's Nest, in which near the end we'll control him separately and achieve the main objective. As I said, the game features vehicles. There are sections that are simply on rail and will just have to shoot from turrets. In others, we'll personally drive and shoot, and the handling on ground is actually good, though aiming with the buggy is a fucking pain because we can change only the vertical axis. Sometimes it's better just to stop and aim from afar instead of getting close to the enemies, that otherwise will blow us very easily. The situation gets better on board of tanks. We can select different weapons that go from the classic minigun to classic rockets and the plasma cannon. We can also fire guided rockets, but we'll have to use them sparingly, because they'll be the only effective weapon against the flying enemies. And talking about flying, the missions on board of fighter jets are both fun and tedious. Controlling the fighter is not difficult, but for example, making tight turns will cause it to stall and crash to the ground. And I also lost count of the game overs caused by enemies crashing into me. Seriously, it looks like they were programmed as kamikazes on purpose. That's insane. Also, guided rockets are the only effective weapon against enemy fighters, which we'll have to make sure to lock on and shoot, preferably when they are in front of us, always hoping they don't ram us first. With its limits, the overall gameplay loop, let's say, it works. The game offers a roughly epic story, in which the Command of the Darwin tries to get in touch with the resistance on Earth, with which it hopes to drive out the breed. In some missions we'll alternate the various phases on rails, vehicles and on foot. In particular, the sections in Command of the Turrets have some difficulty spikes, since we have to understand how to alternate the various positions. Towards the end there's a mission that I kept losing because I was concentrating on firing from the sides, while it was vital to use the central cannon at the top and destroy the anti-aircraft batteries, aka the SAMs. To name a single mission that is different from the usual, towards the end of the game I found myself controlling a single captured Grand, who is then saved by an NPC, with whom escapes from a laboratory or research facility, I don't know, where the breed even go as far as modifying human soldiers, to make them their brainwashed zombie units. These soldiers are rather grotesque. Breed, with all its flaws, is a game that sometimes knows how to surprise. For example, I didn't know it was possible, but during the missions on board the jets, we can freely fly beyond the stratosphere. Look, I've just reached the open space, and that's the Darwin. Damn. By the way, in the meantime, the main mission on Earth has failed due to our absence. What a shame. Playing Breed, you get the feeling of a troubled development that caused consequent cut or underused content, and some lackluster interactions. To name a few, at the beginning of a mission our soldier arrives with a stealth vehicle, but it's not drivable and only visible in action in the initial cutscene, which is followed by a decidedly banal stealth mission. On another occasion, for a short time, we'll play as a Grand equipped with a heavy bodysuit, and we'll even use the flamethrower for the first time. However, this is the only section with this bodysuit, and for the rest of the campaign we'll not use it again till the very last mission. Also, I found it stupid that enemies hit by vehicles remain unarmed. In fact, you can drive through them. The total duration of the campaign is approximately 7 hours. It's intense, spectacular at times, and in the final mission there's an unexpected twist that leads to a fight inside the Darwin, in which we impersonate... Snake.
Snake to Darwin. I've taken out the first breed dropship. The last one's waiting for my guided rocket.
Snake, I need your help. I'm in the 4th floor observatory. Hurry!
Yes, a soldier with a name and his own personality, who wears a jacket that seems to be a tribute to that of Kaneda from Akira. At least that's my impression. Unfortunately, the ending is a kind of sinister cliffhanger that leads to a sequel that, well, never happened. And there's even a final boss that is clearly a last-minute improvisation. Believe me, it's really a big piece of shit. Speaking of graphics, the game is not bad for being from 2004. It's powered by Brat Design's in-house engine called Mercury. Without going into technical details, I appreciated the vast environments and some artistic choices. I liked the design of the breed in their various types, which look more like robots than standard aliens. At the same time, I liked the characterization of the human forces, and then the weapons and vehicles of both sides. There's also the possibility of destroying certain parts of the scenery, such as these towers, or the trees, which gives an extra touch of spectacle. Breed is not even bad to listen to. There's a good soundtrack that boasts pieces of different genres that accompany battles and explorations very well. But there are also moments of total silence that I didn't understand. It's like they forgot to put the music on. Anyway, more than the music, to accompany us, or rather torment us, there's Sergeant Gunny, who sounds pretty caricatural and will continuously inform us about the progress of the missions and their goals.
Here's the latest developments. According to the Resistance fighters, there's a breed communication center on an island in the South Pacific. You're in. Now find the data ports. They've got to be somewhere in this complex. Move to the crash site. You've got to get to our boys before the breed do. Follow the route markers. A breed transporter is trying to take off. It appears as waypoint on your HUD. Take it out. Good news. The Resistance has been located on the South Island, but you've still got to destroy the anti-aircraft battery and secure the area.
In addition to this, he also performs monologues when we access the main menu, which give some information about the lore of the game.
You are the Elite, a genetically engineered family of killing machines, with the sole purpose to annihilate your enemy with extreme prejudice. You will defeat your enemy. You will die for the greater good. You are humanity's heroes.
Aside from Gunny, soldiers also have their own lines of dialogue, for when they respond to orders, or complain about being hit and wounded, as well as the various characterized NPCs, whose lines sometimes sound kinda... amateurish.
Cover me while I deal with the lock. Yoo-hoo! I've gone!
In any case, it's still listenable, and the writing overall ranges from the serious to the ironic and cheesy. See, it's not the kind of story that takes itself too seriously, and the general tone reminded me a bit of Starship Troopers. In the end, Breed turned out to be less of a terrible experience than I expected. Yes, it's an incomplete and buggy game, and aside from the frequent crashes during loadings, one of the stupidest bugs was the end of this cutscene, that ends with this zoom out which seemed to continue forever, and I had to reload the game hoping it wouldn't happen again. Then there was this idiot NPC, who screwed up his pathfinding against a wall, not allowing me to continue the mission. And as a final example, in a buggy escape I got stuck between this tower and the ground. Running this game on Windows 10 was also pretty problematic, and to get a decent result I had to use the beloved DigiVoodoo. Anyway, beyond all the possible issues, I do not regret playing it. After all, it has always interested me, and I never cared about the criticism as a failed attempt as a Halo killer, also because, between you and me, I've never been a big fan of Halo. In fact, unlike Halo that has always bored me to death, I actually finished Brit. It has been a fun and janky experience. It's the legacy of a group of very ambitious people who perhaps didn't know how to manage their resources and time very well. That said, as always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.